Clean faster, janitor! Vince Grady didn't even slow down as he said it. He stepped over the damp strip Ray had just mopped and strode toward the ring like the room belonged to him. Titan's Corner Boxing Club filled the second floor of a glass and brick building off 10th Avenue, where the Hudson wind pressed the windows and taxi horns stitched a restless rhythm below. The place looked like a magazine spread of toughness. Halo lights over a competition ring, black ropes taut as violin strings, heavy bags in a neat platoon, and a fridge of designer electrolytes humming beside a wall of framed fighter posters. Raymond Cole pushed his cart along the lane between the speed bags and the jump ropes, shoulders squared by old habits. At 45, he was lean wire and quiet breath, the kind of man who measured a room before he entered it and left it cleaner than he found it. The club's navy polo hung easy on him, but his movements, how his elbows stayed compact, how his feet never crossed, betrayed an education no time clock recorded. There were medals in a shoebox at home in Washington Heights, certificates tucked in a manila envelope marked "Do Not Forget," and a left hand that still knew the shortest road to a chin. Membership at Titan's Corner cost what rent used to. Evenings brought lawyers and founders and influencers in sculpted athleisure, each paying for the right to look inevitable under those lights. Vince taught them inevitability. 38, photogenic and tanned like a brand deal, he worked the room with a ring walk grin and captions ready for upload. Hashtag win your round, hashtag mindset wins, hashtag city of champions. He liked to correct loudly and praise louder, and he liked it most when both landed where the mirrors could admire him. Chin high, own the space, he told a hedge fund novice stabbing jabs at the air. Vince glanced sideways. Don't worry, he'll mop up the mistakes. A ripple of polite laughter followed, the kind reserved for jokes people aren't sure they're allowed to find funny. Ray kept moving, the mop gliding like a metronome across the wood. From the front desk, Clara Santos ran the club with ledger precision and a bartender's eye for trouble. Her complaint folder lived unlocked in her head and rocked in her office drawer. She saw Vince's theatrics and the way Ray folded the sting into silence. She logged incidents in careful, neutral language. She told herself the gym sold grit, not humiliation. Coach Luis Ramirez saw something else.
61. Cap pulled low, he'd trained kids in basements and contenders under hot lights, and he knew the difference between someone trying and someone remembering. When Ray reached the top corner of a mirror, his shoulders angled like a man slipping a right cross. When he lifted a bucket, his knuckles tucked back to guard without thinking. Reflex doesn't retire, Ramirez thought. It just finds a quieter job. Ray's apartment sat 3 subway stops and a walk north, in a building where the stairwell carried the city's gossip. His 17-year-old son, Malik, did homework at the small kitchen table, headphones around his neck, college flyers fanned like a hand of cards. They shared late dinners and practical optimism. Malik didn't ask why a man with hands like that carried a mop. He asked when they might catch a fight at Madison Square Garden again, just to sit in the noise together. Back at the club, Vince performed confidence. He shadowboxed between rounds, checked his angle in the mirror, and corrected fundamentals with the zeal of a man who believed volume could substitute for nuance. "Swagger first, power second," he declared. From the walkway, Ray's fingers paused on the bottle of spray. Chin down first, he thought, and kept his mouth closed. The lesson had been permanent. Survival is often silence. Closing time arrived in degrees. The jump ropes stopped whistling. The treadmills sighed to stillness. Ray bagged the bins, wiped the benches to lemon clean, and coiled the extension cords like careful snakes. He clicked one row of lights dark, so the ring glowed in a soft electric blue. Sometimes, when the cameras blinked their bored red dots and the city pressed its neon face against the glass, he would raise his hands, just to see if they still rose together. One left floated out, a perfect whisper of a jab, not nostalgia, but maintenance. It left the world and came back to him in the same breath. He stopped there. He always stopped there. Titan's Corner knew his cart squeaked once every fourth turn, and that he stacked fresh towels in tight bricks. It knew Vince's voice, Clara's smile, Ramirez's nod. It did not yet know that the cleanest man in the room also carried the sharpest geometry. It had heard Vince's insult. It had not heard Ray's answer, because Ray hadn't given one. Not with words, not yet.
The night Vince finally crossed the line started like any other. Music loud, gloves snapping, the smell of sweat and polish mixed into a strange perfume of pride. Ray was mopping near the benches when his sharp voice cut through the noise. "Hey, Cole, you ever think about stepping in the ring instead of around it?" Vince stood in the center, gloves on, grin wide. His class of high-paying students chuckled, waiting for the punchline. Ray didn't answer. He just wrung the mop and turned toward the storage rack. "Oh, come on," Vince goaded, voice slick with amusement. "Maybe you can teach us how to dodge responsibility." Another laugh track followed. Even Clara looked away, pretending to fix the front desk screen. Vince turned to his crowd. "You see, folks, boxing is about discipline, but some people never learn that." He jabbed the air twice, then glanced toward Ray. "Tell you what, old man, why don't you show us how it's done? Demonstrate proper form. Everyone's got a right to their moment." The gym quieted, unsure whether it was a joke. Ray's knuckles whitened around the mop handle. "I just cleaned, sir," he said evenly. Vince smirked. "You're refusing an order from your coach?" "I'm not one of your fighters." "Then prove it." Vince tossed a pair of gloves at Ray's feet. "Come on, champ, give us a clinic." It wasn't bravado, more like a trap. Refuse and you're a coward. Accept and you're finished. The students leaned forward, phones already half raised. Ray looked at the gloves, then at the floor. Slowly, he set down the mop and walked toward the heavy bag. The gym went dead quiet. When he hit, the sound didn't belong in that room. The bag snapped backward with a crack that echoed like thunder off glass. He followed with two more, jab, cross, hook, each one fluid, precise, textbook. The chain squealed at the strain. Vince's smile faltered. Ray stepped back, breathing calmly. "That's proper form," he said quietly. For a second, no one spoke. Then whispers started spreading through the crowd. The janitor just outboxed their coach without touching him. Vince's face went from red to pale. "Cute trick," he said, forcing a laugh. "Next time, don't forget to wipe the floor when you're done showing off." Ray nodded once, picked up the mop, and went back to work. But the damage was permanent. Every client in the room had seen it. The smooth power, the discipline, the difference between a showman and a fighter. Vince Grady stared after him, jaw tight, ego bleeding beneath his grin. For the first time, Titan's Corner had glimpsed something that didn't fit its clean narrative of money and sweat. They saw that the man who polished the floor might actually own it, if only for the seconds between those punches. And Vince Grady, the face of the gym, had no idea his worst round had just begun. By Monday, Vince Grady had turned humiliation into a project. The smile he wore that night stayed, but the warmth behind it curdled. His students still laughed at his jokes, but the laughter came slower now, edged with doubt. He noticed, and it ate at him. So he did what small men with large egos always do. He found a quieter way to fight. Ray arrived that evening to find the day's schedule changed. Emergency sanitation during class hours. It wasn't an accident. The mop bucket waited beside the ring, right where Vince's clients were sparring. Every time Ray passed, a punch landed near his feet or a glove brushed his shoulder. "Careful, boss," Vince said, loud enough for the crowd. "Wouldn't want to trip and hurt someone important." The insult stung less than the laughter. Ray swallowed it,
focusing on each sweep of the mop as if rhythm could replace pride. He needed the paycheck. Malik's tuition fund sat at barely half what the schools demanded. Pride couldn't cover rent, and courage didn't buy textbooks. Vince, though, wanted more than submission. He wanted performance. He timed his bathroom breaks to coincide with Ray's route, stopping him just to check cleanliness. Mirrors spotless? Do it again. Lockers disinfected? I smell sweat. The same surfaces shone 3 times before Vince finally nodded approval.
Clara watched from the desk, jaw tight, knowing she'd already sent 2 unanswered reports to upper management. She'd seen good people crumble under lesser pressure. Still, Ray moved through his work like a man walking through fire with water in his hands, steady, careful, pretending the heat didn't exist. Coach Ramirez noticed the changes too. "You all right, hermano?" he asked one night as Ray folded towels in the supply room. "I've been worse," Ray said simply, but the eyes told another story. Tired, patient, angry in the way mountains are angry at erosion. The harassment grew bolder. Vince started using him in demonstrations. "See this?" he said one evening, grabbing Ray by the shoulder. "A proper boxer keeps distance. You can't let people too close." He gave a shove that wasn't instructional. The class laughed uneasily. Ray steadied himself, said nothing. "Relax, old man," Vince smirked. "You're shaken." "I'm holding back," Ray thought, but never said. By the end of the second week, Vince had turned social media into another weapon. A clip appeared on his Instagram. Ray in the background mopping while Vince hit pads. Captioned, "Some people clean up after success, others just clean." The comments rolled in, laughing emojis, cheap jokes, approval from strangers who'd never thrown a punch in their lives. When Malik saw the post, he didn't say anything. He just turned his phone face down at dinner. Ray saw anyway. Still, he went back each night. Still, he cleaned, because that was the deal he'd made with himself. Survive until Malik could leave for college. But survival has limits, and every man who's fought knows the sound of one too many hits landing. By Friday, the ring wasn't the only thing tightening around Ray. Something inside him was, too.
The video hit the internet on a Sunday afternoon. Someone, most likely one of Vince's students, had taken a clip from the night Ray hit the heavy bag. It was edited to make him look foolish. Slow motion of his mop cut against Vince's perfect right hook. Captions in bold white text reading, "When the janitor forgets his place." Vince reposted it within minutes, adding his own tag. #know your role. #tighten mindset. By Monday morning, it had 50,000 views. By noon, 100,000. Comments poured in, half of them laughing, half venomous. "Stay in your lane. Old dude thinks he's Creed. Mop champ of Manhattan." Malik saw it first. He'd been studying in the living room when the notification popped up on his phone. The sound of his own breath cracked in his throat as he read the comments, each one cutting closer to his father. When Ray came home that evening, Malik was sitting at the table with his hands clenched around the phone. "Dad, you gotta see this." Ray didn't need to. He could read it in his son's eyes. He took the phone anyway, scrolling through the swarm of ridicule, frames of his face frozen mid-strike, strangers laughing at what had once been sacred muscle memory. The kind of laugh that it takes a man's history and turns it into content. Malik's voice shook. "Why don't you fight him? Everyone can see what he's doing." Ray put the phone down carefully, as if it might explode. Because fighting him on his terms means he wins twice.
But the words tasted hollow. That night at the gym, no one met his eyes. Vince was louder than usual, bragging about online engagement, telling his class that discipline gets attention, not desperation. The phrase landed exactly where he wanted it to. Ray kept working, his motions slower, heavier. Each sweep of the mop left a thin track of clean that looked almost surgical. He didn't trust his hands to be still if they weren't busy. Later, in the locker hallway, Coach Ramirez found him sitting on a stool. head bowed, phone screen glowing beside a half-folded towel. "I saw it," Ramirez said quietly. "Everyone saw it. You can't let this man break you in front of your boy." Ray looked up, the exhaustion gone from his gaze, replaced by something older, quieter, and sharper. "He already broke the rules. I'm just trying not to forget mine." Ramirez hesitated, then leaned closer. "He's planning to fire you anyway. Heard him bragging about it to the manager. You're done whether you fight or not." The silence stretched. Ray's jaw tightened. He stood, wiping his palms on the towel until the fabric creaked. "Then maybe I stop pretending I can't hit back." The next night, when Vince posted another photo mocking him, Ray in the background, scrubbing the ring ropes, Ramirez slid his phone across the bench. The screen glowed with Vince's latest caption, "Some people dream about fighting. Real men do it." Ray stared at it, then exhaled through his nose. Under the post, he typed 9 words. "Name the day, name the ring. I'm ready." He hit send.
The comment landed online like a body shot. "Name the day. Name the ring. I'm ready. Ray Cole." Within hours, the post detonated across New York's boxing circles. Screens lit up in gyms from Brooklyn to the Bronx. Trainers argued in comment sections, debating whether the janitor at Titan's Corner was bluffing, or if he was, as one old pro wrote, the kind of quiet you don't want to find out about. By sunrise, Vince's followers flooded his feed with questions. "You gonna answer him, coach? Real champs don't hide. Let the man swing." Vince woke up to a storm he hadn't planned for. His reflection in the bathroom mirror looked smug enough, but the knot under his ribs said otherwise. He built a brand on dominance, and silence smelled like fear. So he posted back a photo of his gloves and grin. "Friday night, Titan's Corner. Winner stays, loser walks. Hashtag no excuses." That single line sent the city buzzing. Local boxing forums picked it up first, then the sports blogs. A journalist from the Ring City Review called it the most interesting underground matchup in New York this year. Coach versus custodian. Betting odds appeared before lunch. Grady, 250. Cole, plus 400. Ray saw none of it. His phone stayed off. He trained quietly with Coach Ramirez in the mornings, long before the club opened. Old drills came back like remembered prayers. Shadow work, rhythm skipping, the whisper of leather against the bag. The gloves felt natural again, like conversation.
"You don't need to prove rage," Ramirez told him. "You need to prove control." "I'm not fighting him for revenge," Ray said. "I'm fighting so my son knows when to stop running." Vince, meanwhile, turned the build-up into theater. He filled his stories with clips of sweat and sparring and sound bites about teaching hard lessons. He invited photographers, hinting at sponsorships. "Gonna put this janitor back in his lane," he told a podcaster, flashing teeth made for thumbnails. By midweek, Titan's Corner had to post a sign-up sheet for spectators. 200 names filled the list in hours. Clara ordered extra security and prayed for liability waivers. Malik asked his father if he could come. Ray hesitated, then nodded. "You'll see what real fighting looks like." Friday came fast. The gym transformed into an arena. Ropes tightened, phones lifted, bets whispered like prayers. Vince bounced in the ring, showboating for the cameras. "You ready, old man?" he called. Ray walked out from the hallway in plain black trunks, hand wraps white against his skin. No entrance music, no posturing, just presence. The crowd pressed forward as Sarah from the desk announced the terms. 3 rounds, boxing rules until someone can't continue. Vince smirked, gloves raised high. "Let's teach you humility." Ray met his eyes calmly. "I already learned it," he said. The bell wasn't a bell at all, just Clara's voice saying, "Fight." and the noise that followed sounded less like cheers and more like thunder trying to find its echo.
The gym had never looked like this before. Titan's Corner, usually a temple of curated fitness and calm intimidation, was transformed into a furnace of sound and sweat. Every phone was up, screens glowing, the ring surrounded by a semicircle of faces eager for blood or justice, depending on who they were rooting for. Vince Grady entered first, gloves laced bright red, robe hanging just right for the cameras. He bounced on his toes, winking at his audience. "Let's show him what a real boxer looks like," he told the front row, his grin shining under the lights. Then came Ray Cole. No entrance music, no robe, no entourage. Just black trunks, white wraps, and a silence that carried its own gravity. The crowd's noise seemed to lower as he climbed the steps and ducked between the ropes. He touched the corner post once, ritual, not nerves, and looked across at Vince. Clara stood near the timekeeper's chair, voice steady. 3 rounds. Standard boxing rules. Ready? Vince smirked and lifted his gloves. Ray nodded. Fight. The first 30 seconds were theater. Vince circled wide, pumping his jab, crowd cheering every flicker of movement. Ray didn't move much, just watched. His chin was low, shoulders loose, eyes tracking every twitch. Vince landed a couple of light touches, showy taps that made noise but no damage. He laughed, bouncing away. "That all you got, old man?" Ray exhaled once, just once, like resetting a clock. The next jab Vince threw missed by an inch. Ray's counter left tapped him square on the cheek, a snap more than a strike, but the sound cracked through the gym like a whip. The crowd gasped, phones tilted higher. Vince's smile faltered. He rushed forward, swinging wild. Ray pivoted, slipped, rolled under. The motion looked effortless, fluid, mechanical, precise. A second counter met Vince's ribs, not hard, just a message. Round 1 ended with Vince red-faced, breathing heavier than he should. The crowd began murmuring. Between rounds, Coach Ramirez leaned on the ropes near Ray's corner. "Breathe slow. Let him chase himself tired." Ray nodded, silent as ever. Round 2 began uglier. Vince came in swinging like he had something to prove, but his timing had vanished. Ray's defense was poetry in silence. Every miss drained Vince more. Every small counter chipped at his pride. By the halfway mark, the crowd was cheering for the janitor. "Come on, coach," someone shouted. "Don't let him mop the floor with you." Laughter rippled around the gym. Vince's eyes flared. He lunged with a wild right hand. Ray slipped it, turned his hips, and let a straight left slide out. Clean, efficient, merciless. Vince's head snapped back. He stumbled, caught himself, grinned through blood. Lucky shot. Ray didn't reply. Round 3 opened in a silence that felt electric. Vince charged again, slower now. Pride holding him up more than legs. Ray sidestepped, pivoted, and waited. When Vince swung his final desperate hook, Ray ducked under and released a short left uppercut followed by a crisp right cross. The sound wasn't loud. It was final. Vince hit the canvas flat, arms out, the room frozen mid-breath. Ray stepped back, gloves lowered, eyes steady. No celebration, no taunt, just the quiet dignity of a man who had been patient long enough. The crowd erupted, and for the first time, the floor he had spent years cleaning belonged entirely to him. By the time Vince's body hit the mat, a dozen cameras were already recording. When he came to, dazed, blinking against the ceiling lights, the first thing he saw wasn't Ray or the ring. It was the glare of phones capturing his humiliation from every angle. Someone shouted, "He's out cold." Another voice added, "The janitor did it."
The cheers turned into a wave, half disbelief, half celebration. For a moment, the world had flipped upside down, and Vince Grady, poster boy of Titan's Corner, was the punchline. Ray stood in his corner, gloves still on, breathing slow. He didn't raise his hands or smile. He just waited until Vince staggered up, one glove pressed to his temple, muttering, "It was a cheap shot. You heard that bell, right?" No one had heard a bell. Security stepped in before things escalated. Clara called for paramedics, but Vince swatted them away, red-faced and trembling with fury. He pointed at Ray. "You're done here, you hear me? You assaulted me in front of everyone." Ray didn't answer. He unlaced his gloves, handed them to Coach Ramirez, and left the ring without a word. By morning, the internet had chosen its sides. The knockout clip exploded across social media, 30 seconds of perfect footage showing the mighty coach dropping like a stone. The captions multiplied. "Respect your janitors," "KO of the year," "Blue-collar justice." Vince saw the same clip on his phone at 6:17 a.m., along with hundreds of laughing comments. Sponsors called to pause collaborations. His agent texted, "Let it cool off. Don't respond yet." He ignored that advice.
By noon, a new post appeared on Vince's verified page. Last night was supposed to be a friendly exhibition gone wrong. Unfortunately, a staff member assaulted me outside professional supervision. I'm pressing charges. #respect the sport. The caption flipped the story in a heartbeat. Within hours, gossip blogs ran headlines. Coach attacked by employee during unauthorized fight. Boxing trainer hospitalized after gym brawl. Clara's inbox filled with legal inquiries and press requests. Corporate management demanded statements. The board suspended all public training sessions pending investigation. That evening, police showed up at Ray's apartment. Malik watched from the couch as two uniformed officers stood in the doorway. "Mr. Cole, you're under arrest for assault resulting in bodily injury," one said flatly. Ray didn't resist. He just looked at his son. "It's all right, Malik. Stay calm. Call Ramirez." As they let him out, neighbors peeked through doorways. Malik stood frozen, the echo of the word assault looping in his head. Back downtown, Vince sat in his office, nursing an ice pack and a fragile grin. Cameras outside the building caught his exit as he told reporters, "Violence has no place in my gym." He didn't mention the part where he'd invited it. And for the second time that week, Titan's Corner was trending, this time under a new tag, #JusticeForVince.
The city's courtrooms were built for echoes. Every word bounced off marble and memory. When Ray Cole was brought in wearing county gray, the whisper of cameras filled the hallway outside. "The janitor boxer," someone muttered. "The viral guy." Inside, the press sat like vultures in the gallery. Vince Grady arrived in a tailored suit, a bandage on his temple, his expression somewhere between pain and performance. His lawyer, sleek and practiced, carried a folder thick with printed screenshots and a USB drive marked Exhibit A. Ray's defender, Janet Walsh, was a public attorney with too many cases and not enough sleep. She'd read the file twice and sighed at what wasn't in it: context, motive, truth. "They're calling it workplace assault," she told Ray before the hearing. "Says here you initiated physical contact." "I threw a punch inside the ring," Ray said. "He asked for it." Janet nodded slowly. Proving that's consent might take a miracle. The prosecution went first. Vince's lawyer painted a picture of betrayal and violence. "Mr. Grady offered mentorship," he declared, pacing for the cameras. "Instead, he was attacked by an employee, resulting in a concussion and emotional trauma." He played a cropped video. No crowd, no announcement, just Ray's knockout punch and Vince collapsing. The jury murmured. The media scribbled. When it was Ray's turn, Janet stood, hands steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you've seen is a fragment. You've been shown the final second of a story that lasted months.
but without proof, her words felt like smoke. Then the courtroom doors opened.
Coach Luis Ramirez stepped inside, a flash drive in his hand. "Evidence," he said simply. Janet called him to the stand. The footage he presented wasn't slick. It was grainy security video and phone recordings spliced together. Vince berating Ray during classes. Vince shoving him mid-lesson. The viral post mocking him. The challenge Ray typed. The ring full of witnesses. The entire build-up, laid bare. When the sound came through the speakers, Vince's own voice saying, "Winner stays, loser walks," the jury shifted. The prosecution objected. The judge allowed it. Ramirez spoke carefully. "I've been in boxing 40 years. That was no assault. That was a sanctioned fight by the man not pretending to be the victim." Then Malik took the stand. His voice trembled at first, then steadied. He spoke about the videos, the mockery, the arrest. He ended quietly. "My father's only crime was fighting back the right way." Vince's jaw twitched. When Janet asked him a final question, "Did you or did you not post the challenge publicly?" his composure cracked. "That was promotion, not permission," he snapped, voice breaking through its polish. The room went still. 2 days later, the jury returned. Not guilty. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Ray closed his eyes once, slow and deliberate. Vince stood frozen, reputation unraveling. The press outside flipped their headlines overnight. Hashtag justice for Vince disappeared by morning. Hashtag respect for Ray replaced it.
The verdict landed like a clean jab, swift, decisive, undeniable. Not guilty. For a moment, the courtroom didn't breathe. Then Malik's muffled sob broke the silence. He stood up first, then Coach Ramirez. Then a ripple of applause spread through the benches before the judge's gavel tried in vain to restore order. Ray didn't smile. He only nodded once toward his son, that quiet father's nod meaning, "It's over now." Outside, the courthouse steps were flooded with cameras and microphones. Headlines turned mid-air. The same outlets that had mocked him for weeks now shouted his name like a redemption story. "Exonerated janitor knockout hero," one banner read. Another said, "Coach's lies exposed in courtroom upset." Reporters swarmed, but Ray said little. "I didn't fight to win," he told them evenly. "I fought to be seen." By the next morning, Titans Corner Boxing Club released a statement. "Effective immediately, Vincent Grady is no longer affiliated with our organization. Sponsors severed ties, students canceled memberships. Screenshots of Vince's messages leaked. Taunts, racial jabs, threats, all buried until now. His empire collapsed in the span of 2 news cycles." Meanwhile, Ray returned home to Washington Heights, the same worn hallway and the same light flickering above the kitchen table. Malik had cooked dinner, cheap pasta, but plated like a celebration. "You did it," he said. "We did it," Ray corrected.
For the first time in months, they ate without a clock ticking over their shoulders. A week later, a letter arrived, official, embossed. It wasn't another summons, it was restitution. The court awarded Ray damages for wrongful termination and defamation. It wasn't fortune, but it was freedom. He didn't rush to spend it. He walked uptown, past playgrounds and bodegas, until he reached the abandoned storefront that used to house a laundromat. Dusty windows, cracked tiles, a faint smell of soap and rust. He stood there a long time, calculating space in his head, envisioning bags hanging where dryers once spun. Ramirez found him there 2 days later, sweeping glass from the floor. "Starting something new?" the old coach asked. "Starting something honest," Ray said. They worked side by side for weeks, painting, patching walls, hauling in second-hand equipment from gyms that owed them favors. Malik handled the paperwork, drafted flyers, built a small website. The sign above the door went up one cold March morning, Second Wind Boxing Academy. Opening day drew a modest crowd, neighborhood kids, parents, and a few familiar faces from Titan's Corner who'd come to apologize or to learn what real training looked like. Ray gave a short speech, uncomfortable with the attention. "We're not here to fight people," he said. "We're here to fight everything that tells us we can't stand up." Ramirez clapped first. Malik filmed the moment, uploading it with the caption, "From mops to mitts, from silence to respect." It spread quietly, not like a scandal this time, but like something earned. For the first time in years, Ray Cole wasn't cleaning other people's rings, he was building his own.
By summer, Second Wind Boxing Academy had become more than a gym. It was a heartbeat. The smell of fresh paint mixed with leather and chalk, the thump of gloves against heavy bags blended with laughter and the soft echo of sneakers on polished floors. What started as a cracked storefront in Harlem now pulsed with life every evening. Ray Cole ran it with the quiet authority of a man who didn't need to prove anything anymore. He arrived before dawn, brewed a pot of coffee strong enough to wake the walls, and unlocked the front door at 6 sharp. Within an hour, kids from the neighborhood streamed in, backpacks still slung over shoulders, energy spilling everywhere. He called them fighters from day one, not students. Fighters, he said, because you're all swinging at something: fear, doubt, circumstance. He trained them with patience, teaching how to move feet before fists, how to breathe through anger, how to bow to the bag after each round. Coach Ramirez handled technique classes, his whistle now retired to a nail on the wall. He moved slower these days, but his eyes stayed sharp. "Balance first, pride later," he reminded them. The kids loved him like a grandfather who'd seen every mistake and still had time to watch them make new ones. Malik handled the media and the money, 2 battles his father never wanted to fight. He filmed short videos for social media, clips of workouts spliced with snippets of Ray's old training footage, and the line, "Respect is undefeated." The account blew up quietly, shared by coaches, teachers, and blue-collar dreamers across the city. Before long, local papers wrote about the place. "Second Wind, a gym for the people."
One headline read, "From Janitor to Mentor." Sponsors called, but Ray turned most of them down. He didn't want logos crowding the walls where his students' names would one day hang. One Friday night, after class, Ray stayed late to lock up. Malik found him staring at the mural on the far wall, a painted quote framed by gloves. "We fight so we don't have to fight." "Looks good, huh?" Malik said. Ray nodded slowly. "Yeah, but make sure the kids know it's not about boxing." The gym became a refuge. Kids from rough blocks came to trade anger for discipline. Women from the shelter next door joined the morning fitness class. Ex-offenders found work repairing the space or mentoring new arrivals. Even Clara Santos stopped by one afternoon, quietly donating gear and whispering, "You did what the rest of us only talked about." Vince Grady's name still floated online. Occasionally, someone tagged Ray in an old clip, but the algorithm had already moved on. Fame was temporary. Legacy wasn't. On the Academy's 6-month anniversary, a local TV crew came to film a feature. When they asked Ray for a closing line, he smiled faintly and said, "Second Wind isn't about comebacks. It's about what you do once you've already stood up." And then he went back to holding pads for a boy learning to throw his very first jab.
A year later, Second Wind Boxing Academy was part of Harlem's rhythm. The cracked windows of the old laundromat had been replaced by wide panes where sunlight poured in every morning, illuminating rows of worn but proud gloves. The sign above the door, hand-painted and a little uneven, had faded from bright red to brick brown, but no one wanted to repaint it. It looked earned, not designed. Inside, every sound carried purpose: the steady rhythm of jump ropes, the dull, satisfying thump of bag work, the sharp clap of raised palms as he called out, "Hands up, eyes forward!" His voice had grown stronger over the months, less weary, more alive. He moved differently now, not like a man haunted by old fights, but like one who'd finally made peace with them. Malik balanced his final semester at NYU with part-time management at the gym. He turned the Second Wind social media page into something resembling a movement. Short documentaries about the fighters, snippets of neighborhood history, clips of kids helping each other with homework in the back room. Sponsors who once chased spectacle now chased substance. Malik's camera caught it all: the sweat, the laughter, the slow transformation of fear into focus. Coach Ramirez had retired officially, though everyone knew retirement meant sitting on a folding chair with coffee and correcting footwork between sips. He liked to say, "Boxing's just a metaphor. The ring's the only place left where truth's honest." The kids listened, even when they didn't understand yet. One of those kids, 12-year-old Isaiah from 2 blocks over, had just won his first amateur tournament.
He presented his medal to Ray after class. "You taught me to keep my guard up, coach," he said. "Not just in the ring." Ray hung the medal on the gym wall beside the mural and replied, "Then I did my job." News spread beyond the neighborhood. Articles in the New Yorker and the Times profiled the academy as a model for youth rehabilitation. The city's Department of Education invited Ray to design an after-school mentorship program built around boxing ethics, respect, restraint, resilience. Meanwhile, somewhere across the river, Vince Grady was teaching private sessions in a rundown Jersey gym, his name barely visible on the peeling door sign. He trained hedge fund interns who didn't know his past and didn't care. Sometimes, between rounds, his reflection in the cracked mirror seemed to flinch at old memories. Ray never mentioned him again. There was no need. Second Wind kept expanding. More classes, more stories, more small victories. The once forgotten janitor had become a mentor, and his gym a sanctuary for those who'd been laughed at, underestimated, or dismissed. The neighborhood protected it fiercely. On the anniversary of the grand opening, Malik organized an event called the Night of Respect. Fighters, parents, and local leaders packed the gym. Ray gave a short speech, ending with his fatherly smile. "Champions aren't the ones who win fights. They're the ones who never stop teaching others how to stand." The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was steady, heartfelt, and lasting. Just like the man who earned it.
2 years after the verdict, the story of Ray Cole had already turned into something larger than the man himself. It began as whispers in gym locker rooms, spread through neighborhood pride, and eventually caught the attention of a young filmmaker from Brooklyn who saw something rare: honor in motion. The documentary was called Second Wind: The Ray Cole Story. Opening shots showed the quiet streets of Harlem at dawn, the gym lights flickering on, and Ray sweeping the same floor he once mopped for someone else. Malik's voice narrated, "Some fights are won before the first punch is thrown, when a man decides who he refuses to be." It premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. The audience expected another sports comeback tale. What they got was a portrait of dignity, fatherhood, and the art of restraint. Clips of the courtroom, news headlines, and the viral knockout played briefly. Then the film focused on the aftermath, the teaching, the laughter, the rebuilding. Critics called it quietly devastating and profoundly human. Ray hated the attention, but tolerated it for the kids. "If it gets more gloves on their hands and fewer fists in the street, I'll take the camera flashes," he said during one interview. The academy grew, but Ray never left Harlem. He still opened the doors himself at sunrise, still fixed broken speed bags, still told every new student the same thing on their first day: "You don't come here to fight people. You come here to fight excuses." On the back wall of the gym hung the final mural, painted by Malik before heading off to graduate school.
It showed two boxers mid-swing, not striking each other, but protecting one another, gloves forming a shield. Beneath it were the words Ray had spoken on the night of his acquittal. We fight so we don't have to fight. We teach strength so others can stand tall. Respect is the only title worth defending. That phrase became the Academy's creed, printed on T-shirts, painted on lockers, whispered by kids before sparring matches like a prayer. When the Ring City Review ran its annual feature on boxing's unsung mentors, Ray's profile sat quietly between world champions. The photo showed him sitting on the ring apron, hands clasped, head tilted slightly toward the light, humble, unguarded, whole. He didn't go to the premiere of his own film's nationwide release. Instead, he stayed at the gym, running drills with Isaiah, who was training for his first regional title. When the kid landed a perfect jab-cross combo, Ray nodded. See? That's the sound of balance. Outside, Harlem buzzed. Sirens, traffic, laughter. Inside, the rhythm of gloves against leather marked time better than any clock. Ray wiped sweat from his brow, turned off the lights, and lingered for a moment in the doorway. The city stretched before him, loud, endless, alive. He smiled faintly. Second Wind wasn't just a gym anymore. It was proof that some men don't fall when they're hit. They rise, cleaner than before.